Pavlova is a meringue-based dessert created in early 20th century. It was named after the Russian ballerina Anna Pavlova. A Lomington is an Australian cake made from squares of sponge cake, coated in outer layers of chocolate sauce and rolled in desiccated coconut. It was named after a British politician and colonial administrator who was Governor of Queensland, Lord Lamington. An Anzac biscuit is a sweet, hard-type biscuit popular in Australia and New Zealand. It has been claimed that biscuits were sent by wives to soldiers abroad because the ingredients do not spoil easily, and the biscuits kept well during naval transportation.
This is a timeline of the evolution of food in Australia from the 1500s to today. It shows how food has changed and evolved in Australia over the past 500 years. The timeline looks at the types of food that the Aboriginal people ate and how that has changed over the years.
Over the last 500 years, Australian cuisine has changed. The Aboriginals ate a lot of raw foods such as meat, seafood, nuts and grains, and native fruits and vegetables. When the Europeans came to Australia, they brought flour, stores of rum and beer, grapevine cuttings for wine, coffee plants and beans, and ginger were unloaded in 1788 when the first fleet arrived to the colony of New South Wales. Ginger beer, cordial and lemonade factories sprung up as the colonies developed. The influx of migrants from Europe and America during the gold rush spurred the drinking of coffee and the expansion of street vendors with pies and Cornish pastries. The new arrivals also developed a taste for Chinese food with green vegetables, available in Chinatowns and especially in port cities from the 1860s throughout the 1870s.
At the time of Federation in 1901, there was a change in cooking styles. Outdoor picnics were adopted, introducing the idea of barbecues. There was new staple foods for main meals such as mutton, meat pies, colonial curries and lamb chops. At the end of the Second World War, there was another influx of migrants, which brought new ingredients and new flavours. Australian food began to be defined by the changes brought about by new styles of cooking, especially Mediterranean, Asian, Indian and African. Before European settlement, traditional custodians used the land as their source of food. They would collect produce from animal, trees, plants and the ground. All food they ate was staple foods and were usually used without seasonings, dressings or marinades. The foods were purely eaten by themselves.
During 1788, Europeans settled in Australia, introducing new ingredients to Australian cuisine. They grew new crops on the land, brought flour, wheat, sugar and rice, which recreated the taste of traditional Australian bush foods and revolutionised Australian cuisine.
As a result of the European settlement, the foods we eat are based around the foods that were brought to Australia. World War I saw the creation of Anzac biscuits, which are made from flour, sugar and other ingredients. Today we have foods like pavlova, which is made from sugar and eggs. We also have multicultural foods like Indian, Thai, Lebanese, Chinese and many others, which were all introduced after the European settlement.
That is, the English cuisine that arrives in the 19th century consciously does not adopt local plants and animals. It's unlike the US in that sense also. And the indigenous foodways, what they call bush tucker, okay, those are maintained at least for a while. Today it's a different story, but they're really kept separate for a long time. There were a wide variety of tubers, vegetables like bush tomatoes, finger limes, wattle seeds, fruits like the quandong, which is said to be like a peach, the bunya nut, which grows on a pine cone, and I think the food that you're probably most familiar with, although you probably associate it with Hawaii first, is the macadamia.
A major source of food were animals like kangaroo, wombat or witchetty grubs, as they were the only supply of meat. Also ants, bees and trees supplied nectar and honey for the indigenous people. When the Europeans settled into Australia, they brought a range of different food items, which has now been developed into the Australian cuisine. In the early colonial days, the food was basic and included foods such as seafood, vegetables and native foods, for example, nuts and fruits. The Europeans brought flour when they colonised in Australia. Flour has allowed Australia to incorporate a variety of other foods into their cuisine, some including bread, damper, Anzac biscuits and later on pavlova. Today in our society we see a range of different foods. We've used the European ingredients and have incorporated them into the Australian cuisine. After World War II there was an influx of migrants which brought new ingredients and flavours. This included adding aspects from the Asian, Indian and African cuisine into ours.